Welcome to this deep dive. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating set of sources on cosmic shifts, love, money, and self-discovery this week. Our mission is basically to pull out the most important, nuggets of knowledge from these astrological insights. We're looking at the week of June 30th to July 6th, 2025. Get ready for what's described as cosmic curveballs and emotional recalibrations. Yeah, it sounds like a week packed with shifts in love, money, connection, and maybe a bit of confusion before we get to clarity. Apparently, the vibes might feel just a little off, so we'll explore how relationships, power dynamics, even feelings you've ignored for ages are all under review.
That's exactly right. And I think the core message coming through from these sources is that when things get unpredictable or intense or even kind of surreal, well, a rigid plan isn't really the answer. Instead, it's much more about being present, speaking honestly, and being able to pivot smartly. You really shouldn't underestimate what just one single well-timed conversation can achieve this week. It can change a lot.
Okay, and you mentioned pivoting. Venus seems to be a major player here, right? Shaking things up, making flexibility almost like our secret weapon, and curiosity is our compass. That suggests some pretty big shifts in how we approach relationships, maybe money, beauty, even how we speak up.
Absolutely. Flexibility and curiosity are key. And this whole idea that, changing your mind about what you want,
Hmm.
it isn't some kind of crisis, it's actually growth. That's a really powerful theme this week.
Hmm. Growth, not crisis. I like that.
And looking just a bit ahead, July itself promises this dynamic surge of energies. The sources are calling it the start of a truly turbulent chapter. So
Hmm.
we're not just like on the edge of transformation anymore. We are in it, deep inside it. You should probably expect a very heart-centered shift, something that shakes loose, stagnant energies, really activates the soul with undeniable clarity. But it's not all heavy. The very beginning of July also brings a more playful spirit. Think flirtation, new friendships blossoming,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Okay, so a mix of intensity and lightness. With that big picture set, let's zoom in. Let's unpack this week with some key dates. Maybe start with Friday. What's happening then?
Right, Friday, we have a really significant alignment, Venus conjunct Uranus. The sources frame this beautifully, asking, where has predictability turned into a prison? It's basically your cosmic nudge to see where you've settled for comfort instead of maybe authenticity. This can totally lead to sudden turns in love, finances, or even just your style, your aesthetics, especially in areas that have felt, stale. Could be breakthroughs, could be breakdown.
Wow, predictability is a prison. That really hits home. So for you listening, how might this Venus-Uranus thing actually show up? Like beyond just breakthroughs or breakdowns, what should you watch out for?
Well, it fundamentally tests your ability, or maybe your willingness, to be fully yourself with others. Upsets can happen if you or someone else has been playing a role rather than being, well, real.
Hmm.
The liberation comes when you embrace that shift towards authenticity. It could bring in a new relationship, maybe one that seems unusual but feels right, or a different kind of financial opportunity. The key insight, the real nugget here, is authenticity over comfort, even if it's shaky for a bit.
Authenticity over comfort. Got it. Okay, moving on. July 4th. The sources flag this as a big shift for Venus lasting quite a while, right? Most of July.
That's right. From July 4th right through to July 30th, Venus moves into Gemini. And this brings what the sources call an energetic surge of new understandings and relationships and personal truths. Practically speaking, you might find yourself getting bored really easily with routines or interactions that just aren't mentally stimulating enough. The key here is trying to be open to surprise, but maybe without completely throwing stability out the window. It's a balance.
Right, a balance. It sounds like communication needs to be sharp, stimulating. The sources even have that line, want to talk about it, swap the love poem for a flirty text and meme.
Hmm.
Does that kind of capture it? More intellectual playfulness.
It absolutely does. I mean, communication does become sharper, more direct. But the clarity it delivers, it's designed to cut through illusion, maybe even deception. There's a much greater emphasis now on intelligent conversation. You might find yourself really drawn to someone's wit, how they speak, maybe even just their voice. The deeper dive here is that this whole period really pushes for a pretty significant reevaluation of relationships. It could expose hidden agendas, miscommunications, maybe idealized expectations you didn't realize you had. It demands really a higher level of intellectual honesty and emotional transparency, helps you navigate maybe where you've betrayed yourself or gotten caught in superficial connections or just avoided resolving misunderstandings. So yeah, maybe swap the poem for a really good debate.
Okay, that's Venus in Gemini.
Yeah.
But also starting July 4th, and this one lasts much longer, all the way to December 10th, we have Neptune retrograde in Aries. That sounds profound, like a really deep long-term shift.
Oh, it truly is. It's a fascinating and definitely profound period. If you wanted the blinkest takeaway for Neptune retrograde, it's kind of like your intuition gets laser focused on exposing self-deception. Your intuition, your psychic impressions, they could feel much stronger than usual. Dreams might become incredibly vivid, your imagination too. This whole long retrograde is really about dissolving outdated identities and fantasies built on false premises. Your heart might feel quite open, actually making it easier perhaps to be selfless, feel compassion, maybe forgive, and finally let go of past
Yeah,
hurts.
that sounds incredibly powerful,
Yeah.
but maybe also a bit destabilizing. Dissolving identities. Are there parts of this that could feel disorienting?
Yeah.
And how do you stay grounded through that?
That's a really good question because, yes, while it's ultimately about growth, it can feel disorienting. Absolutely. The realizations that come up during this time often revolve around self-worth, identity, authenticity. It's a chance to reflect on maybe misconceptions you hold about yourself, things that undermine your confidence without you even realizing it. You could definitely confront truths you haven't seen before, shed unhealthy dynamics. The goal is to reveal deeper soul truths, opening doors for real, lasting growth, spiritually and emotionally. The challenge, I think, comes if you try to resist that inner prompting, that call to look deeper.
Okay, that makes sense. But the sources also give that heads up, that warning about seeing reality through rose-colored glasses.
Hmm.
How does that fit in, especially with dissolving illusions? What's the pitfall?
Yes, exactly. This is the caution flag. This retrograde offers almost like a behind the scenes look at our dreams, our illusions. Maybe even that one big goal we swore was divine inspiration, but looking back, might have just been our ego having a field day. So it's really a time to observe where you might be ignoring red flags, consciously or unconsciously, and maybe setting yourself up for disappointment down the line. You could feel quite vulnerable, maybe even overwhelmed. And the risk is turning to escapism, addictions, whatever, just to avoid facing reality, feeling as if you are moving through fog and cannot see clearly. That's a direct quote. And it captures the potential confusion. This might feel strongest for those of you who have planets or key points in your birth chart between, say, 1 and 3 degrees of the cardinal signs, that's Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn. So the nugget here is really learning to distinguish true divine inspiration from self-deception or wishful thinking.
Okay, distinguishing inspiration from deception. That's crucial.
Yeah.
Let's shift gears, though, maybe end the week on a more harmonious note. Looking at Sunday, the sources mention two positive alignments happening together. Was the first one Venus sextile Saturn?
Right. Sunday brings Venus sextile Saturn, and this is a wonderful alignment, actually. It encourages you to dream big, yes, but also to commit to the practical steps needed to make those dreams happen. It's really favorable for creative projects that have staying power, legs, or for romantic conversations that actually lead somewhere meaningful. It's also good for building bridges where maybe miscommunication has been an issue. The core insight here is that serious, lasting connections grow best when they're not forced, but built on shared commitment and realistic effort.
Shared commitment. Nice. And then, happening at the same time on Sunday, we also have Venus sextile Neptune retrograde. How does that blend work, especially with Neptune still doing its retrograde thing?
Yeah, this creates a really lovely, almost magical blend. It's where charm meets credibility, maybe flirtation finds some genuine depth, and imagination gets a helpful reality check, but in a good way. The advice from the sources is essentially to try and be both realistic and idealistic in your relationships right now. It's possible to hold both. Conversations with loved ones can be serious, grounded, but also infused with a real sense of hope, maybe even a spiritual connection. It's about grounding your dreams without losing their magic, their spark.
Okay, grounding dreams without losing the spark.
Yeah.
So let's try to wrap this up. What does all this mean for you navigating this week starting June 30th? We've covered cosmic curveballs, emotional recalibrations, these big opportunities for self-discovery, relational growth. It sounds like a week of peeling back layers, really.
Absolutely. I think the overarching theme is truly about embracing authenticity and clarity, even when things feel uncertain or maybe when you're feeling that pull to shed old illusions that have held you back. The key takeaways, the things to really hold on to this week are presence, just being here now, honest communication, that ability to pivot smartly when needed, and really embracing both flexibility and curiosity as your guides through it all.
It really feels like this deep dive shows these aren't just, abstract cosmic predictions. They're more like profound invitations, aren't they? Invitations for growth, for authenticity, for deeper connection in pretty much every part of your life.
Exactly. They're invitations. And given the strong emphasis this week on dissolving illusions, on revealing those deeper truths, maybe here's a final thought for you to ponder as you move through the week. What one rose-colored glass, just one, might you be willing to gently remove this week to finally see a truth that ultimately liberates you?